and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode I'm discussing the classic 1968 British musical fantasy Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, as directed by Ken Hughes and based loosely on Ian Fleming's 1964 novel Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, The Magical Car, one of his few such novels not portraying that debonair and suave secret agent 007. This one being aimed squarely at a younger, more imaginative audience. So before I get started, I would just like to give a big shout out to Trent Martin, who requested this review as a bit of a shout out for him. And yes, so thanks Trent for another fantastic suggestion. This is a classic movie. It's one from my childhood too. Been around for quite some time. It's on basically every single Christmas. But yeah, what an absolute British staple. So yes, the movie, indeed, takes us on a wondrous adventure with madcap inventions, lavish musical numbers and far-off lands, and indeed, one magically enchanting and rhythmically iconic motor vehicle lovingly named Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Due to the unusually irregular sound its engine makes as it turns over. Dick Van Dyke is Caricature Potts, a harebrained inventor and local crackpot whose inventions never seem to turn out quite as expected. The original dreamer of the over-engineered solution. His two children, Jeremy and Jeremiah, as played by Adrian Hall and Heather Ripley, respectively, whilst playing hooky from school, fall in love with a bent-up old racing car in a junkyard, soon to be sold to an unscrupulous junk dealer, and whilst on their way home to get their father to kind of cough up the funds to buy it for them, they do bump into none other than Truly Scrumptious, as played by Sally Ann Howes, who seems to take an instant interest into the children's lives and well-being. Needless to say that after a few impromptu musical numbers, characters manages to raise the money to buy his kids the car. And after putting his engineering skills to good use this time round, manages to actually get the car up and running, with a few modifications, and promptly proceeds to take Truly, Jeremy and Jeremiah out for a picnic and a day by the sea. Tired with full bellies, the group retire back to the car for some much needed R&R and a few tall tales. And that's when the adventure really begins, and we find out just what kind of wondrous things Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is capable of. So, I am going to actually have to fess up on this one. I have seen this movie absolutely countless times over the years, and I mean countless. But now, not now for quite some time, you know, not for a while. But when I was younger, this used to be on nearly every day. No, every year at least. And as it turns out, never actually in one sitting. So I must have just watched like little snippets. So parts of it, including a very, very important part, I had completely missed. This film was not exactly what I had grown up believing it to be. I thought it was always a Mary Poppins kind of bedknobs and broomsticks style adventure that kind of whisked us away with a fantastic car across the globe. But alas, it actually turns out, and yep, more fool me, and this is the part that I've always missed, that half the film, the most juicy bits, the most fantastical bits, although still quite an adventure, I'm not going to lie, are simply a story being told by characters to entertain his kids. I did feel a little bit stupid, and I do know what I still kind of do. I'm going a little bit red in the face for kind of not realising this before. And to be honest, I did feel a little bit kind of robbed of the adventure and some of the nostalgia I had for the film when that kind of realisation hit. I was a bit amiss for a while I was watching it, to be quite honest with you. It was like I'd kind of lost a tenner and kind of found a pound, you know? So, as a disclaimer, I did try and not let my stupidity and ignorance spoil my outlook on the movie, but I'm sure it tainted it to some extent. So just as we're all clear. Now, the movie it still holds a special place in my heart regardless, you know? Watching this movie conjures up just so many memories of sitting back with family on a lazy Sunday afternoon, filling up on Sunday lunch, usually near Christmas, like I've said, Grandad asleep in his favourite chair, and everybody else kind of huddled up close to watch whatever movie was on the TV station we had seen fit to repeat, you know, for our viewing pleasure. Probably one of the only TV stations we had. Looking for some of that kind of silly, kind of fantastical humour. And that was usually this, or a carry-on, to be quite fair. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Mary Poppins, staples in this country at least. What's interesting about the movie, to me, is just the sheer amount of talent that was actually involved in its production. Many British household names of the time can be found both behind and in front of the camera. From the story itself being derived from one of Ian Fleming's works, to it being produced by none other than James Bond alumni Albert R. Broccoli. Yep, and even with the screenplay co-written by highly regarded and beloved children's author Roald Dahl, who coincidentally co-wrote the screenplay for the 1967 James Bond movie You Only Live Twice. There's so many who had kind of been involved in the Bond franchise in this, that this could have easily have been 007's adventures in Tinkertown. Certainly a small, tight-knit community. And then there's those that making up the supporting cast, from the likes of Benny Hill, Barbara Windsor, James Robertson Justice, Stanley Unwin, Lionel Jeffries, and even Desmond Llewelyn. More Bond, all making sure that there are plenty of perfectly done, excellently timed slapstick comedy moments, giving us a veritable who's who of British cinema at the time. The kids are a bit robotic, giving what looks like a very rehearsed and often cued performance. Everything seems somewhat removed and despondent as a result, you know? It's not an all entirely natural performance, and it's hard to kind of think of Dick Van Dyke as their dad. The chemistry just isn't there. But it's sweet enough, you know, for what it needs to be. And to give the kind of overall delivery of the movie, they serve their purpose. I'm not gonna grumble too much about that. The overall story works a little bit like Alice in Wonderland meets The Wizard of Oz. The main aspect of which happens akin to like a daydream, taking the occupants of the fabled car to a far-off world with a song and a dance. Dick Van Dyke is in his absolute element here too, churning out musical number after musical number. It doesn't take too much to get him started, and he's absolutely on top form. For all intents and purposes, this is his show, and by gum, does he let us know. It is a totally charming movie, where everything's a reason for a song. From an era when everybody was up in your business, but totally full of eccentric characters and oozing plenty of classic British cheese. Coming across sort of like a kind of a soft reboot of Mary Poppins, which is made ever more seemingly given the presence of Dick Van Dyke. You know? There is a kind of sweet innocence about it, and a certain warmth when characters does finally get old Chitty Chitty Bang Bang back up on the road in all its gleaming glory. There's a sense of wonderful anticipation as he's kind of tinkering and modifying secretly with his family, awaiting that big reveal. I would say that it feels pretty slow in ramping up to their big adventure, that never happened, but their big adventure. But in saying that, now I know the adventure is a bit of a tall tale anyway, I would admit I did actually prefer the first half of the movie. Somehow the energy just felt different, brighter even, whereas the second half it did seem to kind of run around in circles quite a bit as it was going on, having each eccentricity try and outdo the last. It's a long film for what it actually delivers, and the second half does seem to go on forever, not really being quite as succinct nor joyfully musical as the first, and becoming a very pantomime in the process. Overall, despite my own misgivings and stupidity, now I know what the format of the movie really is after all of this time, stupid me, it is still a wonderfully musical, delightfully playful adventure destined to bring a smile to your face. Dick Van Dyke is in his absolute element, and his exuberance and enthusiasm more than carry the movie. And there is indeed some wonderfully lavish musical numbers that certainly can't help but be infectious. With their big band, big stage show production style, I do promise that you'll know at least one of the songs in this movie, even if you've never actually seen the film. It has an unflustered and unhindered, pure and honest magical quality to it. Total fun and fantasy, you know, brilliantly whimsical, having quite the imagination. Very much a perfect bit of light entertainment, full of that quintessentially British charm. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk, and definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.